Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree. I do apologize for the stubble. I have not taken my HRT pills today, my estrogen and such. And my razor is in this rubble here. I've been opening presents and gifts and boxes and things for the past couple days. So I'll find it before next week's videos. But anyways, just a quick update, and today I'm talking about model trains. Now, as far as I know, model trains come in 3 primary scales. There may be other scales, but I only know of the 3 scales. HO scale, God's gift to humanity. N scale, the scale that weirdos and wackos use. And O scale for toddlers. And 70-plus-year-old dudes who wish they were still toddlers. HO scale is the correct scale to use, and the scale that I have always used. I got into model trains, sidebar, in an interesting way. So actually, I didn't initially get into model trains as a hobby by way of the trains. My interest in model trains came through watching the movie Beetlejuice when I was 7 years old and being fascinated by that scale model town they had up in their attic. And I thought, that looks fucking cool. I want one of those. I want to build a scale model town of this very specific town in Kansas that I lived in for a while. And so I used to make buildings out of cardboard and paper mache because I thought that's what you did. Because I didn't know you could buy plastic buildings and assemble them yourself and buy trees and things and actually build model towns. I didn't know that was a thing until I was 12 years old, living in Hastings, Nebraska. And there was a store in Hastings, Nebraska I will not identify for reasons, that sold model trains in the toy aisle with other hobby stuff. And I went immediately past the because they had models, rocket shit, bottle rockets. They had like the car models, they had the sci-fi models, and then at the end of the aisle, they had the trains, which I just ignored. And then I saw the trees, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then I saw the buildings, and I was like, holy shit, this is what I've been looking for. So when I was 12 years old, I got into the hobby of building a town, not necessarily the model trains. I didn't buy any trains for a very long time. So I bought, houses and streets and buildings and churches and businesses and stuff, and I started building this town. And then when I was in high school, I got my first train. I got some tracks, and I got a rail car, and it was one that came in a little Ziploc bag that you had to assemble yourself, which was weird, but I did. I assembled it, and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. Now, when I lived in Nowhere, Kansas, which is what I'm calling this town for now, my sisters and I used to walk along the railroad tracks, as kids do, and, on our way to school because, or to the arcade, which was on the other side of town, just because it's what kids do. Although we were always told, stay off the railroad tracks. Yeah, right. Kids don't listen. If you're a parent right now and you think your kids listen to you, I got news for you. They don't. Because, be real. You didn't listen to your parents when you were a kid either. And if you say you did, I assume you're lying. Now, I can't prove it, but I'm going to assume it. But we had a co-op building in town because it was a farm town in Kansas. And so we used to go down to the co-op building and buy, a bottle of pop, because this is where they sold the pop in town. because the grocery store went out of business because this was a small town and it was dying piece by piece. And we would watch the trains go by. And so I started to connect my passion for model railroad layouts, is what they're technically called, which for me it was just SimCity. Because once I discovered SimCity, I attached that to my model building. And so what I was doing is designing the city in SimCity and then trying to replicate that with models. Now, as I've mentioned a bajillion times before elsewhere, we moved around a fucking lot when I was a kid. And so every time you move, no matter how careful you are when you're a kid, things get lost in the move. They always do. Something always gets lost. And if you move enough times, eventually you lose enough stuff that after a while, you don't have a full model train layout anymore. You just got bits and pieces of what used to be a model train layout. And so I took what was remaining of what was left of my model train town and threw it in the trash and walked away from the hobby. Every 6 or 7 years goes by, I always get the itch and go back to the hobby. Dabble for 6 months to a year, realize I don't have the space for it. The inevitable move comes up, and then I just throw everything away because it ain't worth packing into my tiny little fucking car to move across country, as I often do, because I have to prioritize my space. And you know, the video games, the comic books, the toys get priority. The model trains and, you know, the library books, I'm not saying library books, but books for my personal library, they find themselves in the dumpster, the nearest industrial dumpster I can dump stuff on in as long as no cops are looking, and I get the fuck out of town. So, the most recent attempt is this past couple of months. I found a model train store, a dedicated model train store in town. And I decided instead of building a layout, I'm going to build a little, essentially a diorama on a card table. So that's my goal. So I'm currently collecting pieces to assemble for that. And I'll just have a little, you know, card table size diorama that will satisfy my itch. And that will be my model train fix. So that's where I'm at right now. I have done both pre-assembled buildings where you just buy a box and the building is ready to go. And I've bought buildings you have to assemble yourself, either glue together or snap together. I prefer the snap together because I get glue stuck on my hands, and then I get my hands stuck on the furniture, and then I get stuck to the furniture, and it's a mess. I'm not very good with glue. And we're talking super glue here. So this is the kind of glue you can get stuck to the furniture real easy, and then you're kind of SOL. So I prefer the snap together or pre-assembled. Pre-assembled buildings cost a little bit more. The snap together ones tend to be a little bit more expensive than the glue together ones because they're easier to assemble, and the glue together ones literally come in a plastic bag and you just glue them together and assemble it. Whereas the snap together ones tend to come in a cardboard box, and the pre-assembled ones are usually just a building on the shelf at the store in the glass case that you just buy or ask for, and then they give it to you. You negotiate the price or ask how much it is. I shouldn't say negotiate. You ask how much is this, they give you a price, and then you decide to pay it or you keep shopping. I am absolutely not interested in Thomas the Tank Engine, and I don't really have a fascination with trains themselves. So when I'm assembling my model train layout, yes, I will have railroad tracks. Yes, I will have trains and a train station just because. But the trains will not follow a track, and there will not be an engine that is powered that will go around in a circle and pull cars. That will not happen. I do not fuck around with electronics. Mostly because that's a little bit more permanent and it's harder to disassemble. And I assume, I'll probably be moving again in the future. Maybe not in the near future, but probably not in the distant future. So there's no point in assembling something I can't disassemble and take with me, that I have to leave behind or try to sell or dispose of somehow. Also, the railroad tracks don't come in small enough, unless you're going with the insanely idiotic in scale. They don't scale small enough to fit on a card table and make a complete circle. Because they're usually a much bigger, I think it's like an 18-inch radius or something like that, and that's bigger space than will fit on a card table. And that's the maximum space I'm going to have to allocate to this endeavor. Which I don't currently have said card table in my possession. So I'm just collecting model train stuff currently and stacking it in a box right now for future use. Hopefully. I have since decided that I am no longer rebuilding that town that I lived in as I remember it, because it's been so long since that town had life in it, and I'm not a kid anymore. My memories are fuzzy, so I don't know if I could recreate it accurately, because the town's not there anymore. There are still houses and people in the zip code where the town used to be, but the town itself, the evidence that there had ever been a town, I should say, is gone. It's dust. The buildings are mostly gone. The businesses are all gone. The restaurants are gone. The bars, everything's fucking gone. There's nothing left. Just a few houses and some, farmers that refuse to move on with their lives. So there are no Google images for me to reference to recreate it, because this town died before Google was a thing. And so, it died before digital cameras took off. So there is nothing for me to reference, and my memories are too fuzzy for me to consider them to be accurate. So I'm going to create a more idealized town, loosely inspired by what I remember of the town, but with modifications to make it more Americana, is my goal. It won't be based on a real town. And any building that comes with the word Plasticville, because a lot of them do, etched on the side of the building, that will get etched off, because it's not going to be Plasticville. That's not going to be the name of my town. So I don't know if any of y'all are into model trains or not. If you are, please be into HO scale, for the love of God. And beyond that, stay cool.